there is such a creature in the world. They were discovered by a few people, but it has not been confirmed to exist. We refer to this group of creatures as Unidentified Organism, UMA for short. Hello and welcome to the UMA video series. Fire dinosaur is a distinct category in derivative zoology. It refers to being witnessed in some areas, or doubts circulating among individual indigenous peoples, like a surviving prehistoric species. Although modern academic circles generally believe that, after the ancient athletic dinosaur mass extinction event, only birds and mammals, avoided a meteorite impact, become the beginning and end of the new generation. But in the 1920s, sightings of large creatures are constantly emerging, and the written records of the pioneering explorers make people suspicious. These prehistoric creatures have individuals or groups, in some excellent natural environments, survive to this day. What I'm going to share with you today. It was such a thing that in the middle of the last century, suspected sight creatures that caused a huge sensation. Tyrannosaurus. Kasai is the Democratic Republic of Congo, a province in the southwest, named after the Kasai River, a tributary of the Congo River. Due to complex historical and political factors, the plates of Kasai City have changed several times. I won't go into that. And speaking of Kasai, I believe many friends will respond to the Tyrannosaurus Rex, or Tyrannosaurus Rex, have more or less an impression. To borrow the words of a friend of mine who loves paleontology, say, a possible living giant carnivorous horned dinosaur. And it was very impressive just listening to it. Tyrannosaurus. It is generally described as a body 13 meters long, giant bipedal lizard. Or directly describe it as giant carnivore in the form of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Reports of sightings of this creature we are now online, and most often found in most media. The version I see says that one day in 1932, a Swedish hunter named John Johnson carried a servant. People traveled to the Caves Valley in what was then the Belgian Congo. Along the way, they encounter a rhino. When they are careful, when trying to avoid him and move on, a giant sound wave suddenly rushed out of the bushes next to it. Fear scares away the timid servant. Johnson was unconscious on the spot when he woke up in a daze, but was horrified to see that huge creature devouring the carcass of a rhino. He described the creature as having a red overall color and with black markings. John has a long nose and dense teeth. His legs are thick, like the legs of a lion, as if born for speed. He thinks this 13-meter-long creature was a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Regarding the above paragraph, specific aspects of the summary description, I haven't found an exact relevant source, but at least the report is indeed in the paper I browse. Keep detailed records. March 8, 1932. Rhodesia goes to report the reward first, published an article called Congo Kasai Valley. Articles on the discovery of strange creatures. The text mentions Swedish adventurer and hunter John Johnson, before returning to Rhodesia, Kasai area of Ugango, encountered an unknown large beast. I embellished in a partially rigid translation. The following is his original painting dated February 16th. I went hunting with my gun-carrying assistant. We only had a Winchester rifle, used to hunt small animals. I didn't expect to hit anything big. 2 p.m. I arrived in the Kasai Valley, but still didn't see any prey. As we got down near the pond, the boy next to me suddenly shouted elephant. Behind the dense jungle, it seems that there are two huge bows vaguely obscured, until we came to a distance from them, about 50 yards away, and I saw that incredible thing. That's a monster. It's about 16 yards long, with a lizard's head and tail. I closed my eyes, then reopened. There's no question, the animal is still there. The accompanying boy huddled in the grass and whimpered. My hunting zeal began to waver. My teeth were trembling with fear. It took me 3 hard bites to stop. Suddenly the monster, with an astonishing speed, disappeared from our sight. It took me a while to recover. The boy cried and prayed next to me, and I helped him up, pushed him to come home with me. En route, we had to cross a huge swamp. My limbs because of previous fears. He's paralyzed, so we walked very slowly. However, in this swamp, here we are again, encountered that giant lizard. He's biting a dead rhino. He was covered in mud. At this point I was only about 25 yards away from him. It's just awful. The boy is carrying my rifle. Fleeing there in panic. Just leave me alone and be careful. Don't dare to move. And then I thought about my camera. I can hear the bones of rhinos. Chewed in the mouth of that lizard. The crunch of. But the moment I pressed the shutter at the monster, he plunged into the deep water and disappeared. My nerves have been in a state of collapse. Until it was dark before my eyes, exhausted and passed out in the bushes. The speed with which this animal moves is what shocked me the most. Finally, when I finally got back to camp, I must look like a lunatic. The owner there, Metcalf, said. I walked in and he was stupidly waving his camera and make an incomprehensible sound. I dare say I did indeed do that. My fever lasted for 8 days. Period. I was in a kind of coma almost all the time. These are the first reports of the incident. Attached here is the most widely circulated on the internet. The so-called giant lizard photographed by Isis Johnson. 3 photos. Photo. Each shows what appears to be a wide open mouth, roaring creature. An alien-like creature stepping on a rhinoceros carcass. And a creature that looks like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Footage of eating rhinos. And these are the 3 images that I'm going to analyze later. Next time continue. January 15, 1933. The second related report. Once again boarded the Rhodesia County report. The article mentions, nearly a year later, lots of hunters and explorers. Attempts were made to find what Johnson called the superstar lizard, but no one. I found conclusive evidence of life. But this did not dampen the hunters' enthusiasm. Meanwhile, witness Johnson was in Cape Town, received a second interview, did not debut. The creature's color is red, with black stripes. And he has a long nose. And a lot of teeth. His legs are thick, reminiscent of a lion's legs built for speed. He thinks, this beast is no different from a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Maybe 43 feet long. Considering this information, Rhodesia will report first, confident enough to name this creature Kasai Tyrannosaurus. And that's how it started. The name of Tyrannosaurus Rex begins to spread to the world. More and more people are heading to the mysterious Congo rainforest. Expect to find this supposedly alive corset-footed dinosaur. And the second episode has a more widely circulated eyewitness account. It happened in this context. Early 1933, a team of 5 hunters set out for the Kasai Valley, looking for the monster named Kasai Tyrannosaurus by the newspaper. They believe that, initial event, possibly from Johnson, misunderstanding of a giant crocodile. Its skin. Obviously, it can be sold at a good price. However, when they reached the Kasai Valley, when crossing the swamp marked by Johnson, one of the hunters noticed in horror a huge red tail like a water horse sink into the lake. The atmosphere instantly became tense. Just as they took out their weapons, there was a sudden wave on the left side of the teammate. A red saw tail broke through the water, knocked one of the hunters into the water. The remaining 4 people start shooting at the red object, but the latter immediately sank into the water. Lovers only see the ripples spreading out on the water. The man who was attacked broke his arm. He stood up and slowly approached his companion. Then there was a roar from the water's edge, urging them to move quickly. A giant creature appeared right in front of them, emerging from the water on the right side of the line, sinking to the left. Hunters hide behind rocks until the creature leaves. Just escaped from that place. The last event. It describes a man named Robert Henderson, zoologist. He was also an animal hunter. Traveled to the Kasai Valley in August 1951. He led 5 locals into the river. The other side hopes to capture some newer surprises, rare species. After 6 days, they did not return to the village at the agreed time. At this moment, the river has risen badly because of the heavy rain. So people waited a few more days. They still haven't come back. The village will immediately join the military. A team of 15 was dispatched, crossed the river in search of Henderson, and the next day, they found the starting camp of the previous team, located in a desolate valley. There is hardly any sign of life around. By the morning of the 3rd day, as they continued to search the surrounding area, but found that terrifying scene. It was a makeshift camp that was completely destroyed. About 10 meters away from the campsite, the corpses of the team members were scattered everywhere. The situation was extremely tragic. They only found one of Henderson's forearms and a palm. The police came to 2 conclusions. One is the team. They were tortured by illegal poachers. This kind of thing was not uncommon in those days. The other is that they may die from certain food animals, because some of the bodies had bite marks. But anyway, Henderson's live gun shows signs of firing. But no animal carcasses were found nearby. The rescue team at the time revealed a possible details. Some damage around the campsite indicates that there seemed to have been something huge and heavy approaching the camp. Of course, the previous case still haven't gotten a clear conclusion. That's all there is to know about Kusai Tyrannosaurus. Relevant eyewitness reports, for a long time, for this giant species, is there a genuine opinion? Whether in academia or in the media, is highly controversial. British science fiction writer, inventor Arthur Clarke. This is 1980, book version of Arthur Clarke's Mysterious World. Expressed the credibility of the event. In his own words, I've learned not to doubt those unlikely creatures. In this era of advanced camera equipment, any large land animal must cunning enough to avoid being discovered. The remaining hiding places are more remote mountains and lush tropical forests. There must be countless unknown creatures. There may also be some rather large ones, but because the locals believe they exist, of course, so nobody bothered to report them. The same part is self-media at home and abroad, including early Western print media. And some of its audience believe that the giant red creature in Johnson's description, obviously unlike any known modern species, it's a living dinosaur. It might be the most reasonable explanation. However, we need to know, at least so far, humans have never been in Africa, have found any fossils carved by Tyrannosaurus Rex. So another giant carnivorous dinosaur. Of course, the best suspect. He's a Sabodon. This is a currently known one of the largest theropod dinosaurs. The estimated body length is about 10 to 12.5 meters. Lived about 100 million years ago to 94 million years ago. North Africa on the Sinoman border of Lake Baya. Because of its relationship with great white sharks, named after similar tooth structures, like most other skinny-footed dinosaurs, his forelimbs are short. On the contrary, the hind limbs are unusually strong, muscular. There is also a slender one, tails for balance. A large carnivorous dinosaur that may still be alive. It's a fascinating statement, but including many occult zoologists, more people are inclined. The whole Kusai Tyrannosaurus incident is a chain line now. Let's go back to these three important image information, according to Belgian occult zoologist Bernard. Professor Woolman's statement. The Rhodesian Herald ran this photos from German newspapers, and said someone said the beast he ate was a rhino. It is also said to be a hippo, but the blurriness of the photo itself make people unaware of the monster's prey. He thinks it was published in several newspapers, and this photo in the magazine, totally from forgery. One subject do along. It was clumsily transplanted to an African swamp farm. Treat him like a ballerina, perched on the carcasses of hippos or rhinos, so he looks huge. Indeed, if you look closely at this animal, we can find out, all around him, surrounded by a light background color. This is obviously a close trace. And the way the potential floats on objects. Very unnatural. It can be said that the splicing feeling is very obvious, and this picture, with all due respect, when Arp first saw this picture, it took a long time to react. What he expressed. The image of Tyrannosaurus Rex and the ground rhinoceros UI fits the description of the Johnson incident very well. British occult zoologist Richard Freeman. The photo was disputed on a blog. He thinks this Tyrannosaurus Rex looks like it's from some freeze-frame animated movie. Modern counterfeiting is more likely. But he couldn't find the exact location of the photo. But to put the problem, thrown it to the British court, dinosaur experts at the Zoological Center, Alan Freesville. The latter responded to the survey results on March 30, 2010, published. It turns out, this picture is indeed a synthetic product. And it comes from a person whose online name is Image Processor at Finbar, model of Tyrannosaurus Rex, from his collaborator Ripple. His creative inspiration, it's from a famous American paleontologist, Charles Knight. Creation in 1904. The Lost Land of Etrin. The painting depicts an Etrin feeding on the remains of a brontosaurus. And when we mirror this picture, we find that. Okay, the credibility of the Tyrannosaurus photo really needs to be tested. However, I will tell you this, and these two images are much more widespread. But what was really attached to the initial report was actually only. This picture is blurry, similar to the photo with markings. Although most media will associate it with subjects with open mouths, sought to compare but just how blurry the picture is, plus the inability to identify the limbs. And in the case of tail characteristics, I'm not personally sure what kind of animal it is. Well, I think so, too. Most of the information about the Tyrannosaurus event, missing key elements of credibility. First of all, in my previous work, it was mentioned that Rhodesias should report this information first. Its archiving standards are unusually strict. With my personal authority, the original reporting documents could not be found at all, especially the 1933 report, and all I found was this brief. Why is that? Many media will publish this picture, the first photo taken by Johnson. Although this photo is reported, I couldn't find it either. Dr. Carl Schuck, a mystic zoologist, has said, Dinosaur. From Rhodesia, a man named the staff of Grobler. He wrote, the Cologne Gazette said the photos were not clear, but they revealed a very important discovery. Johnson stumbled upon one unique dinosaur family specimens. He must have lived thousands of years ago. None of this hits the dinosaur point of view. It does turn us around. Go to the report in Rhodesia's report first. In fact, Johnson has always been. There's no mention of an animal that looks like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Even in a follow-up interview in 1933, the Tyrannosaurus Rex view is also not marked by Yuan Haixu. It's Dragon Smash. In the article, consecutive double quotes can lead many people to misunderstand. So what really came up with the theory of Kasai Tyrannosaurus? It's actually the editor of this paper eyebrow. 1932. In Johnson's original painting, the creature is 16 yards long. It's 43 feet by 33. The length difference between the front and rear is 1.5 meters. The rigor of the media is not high. So much for that, and I have to tell you this. The two subsequent reports, I also didn't find any specific places. Included in almost all relevant online media, all mentioned in the Hunter Squad in 1933, there was a man who had a reputation as an ivory seller. I went through a few vendors from that era. No information was found. Event Squad record for going to Kasai in 33 years. As for the protagonist in the third incident, Robert Henderson, there are more characters with the same name themselves, but I didn't find one. Died in 1951. Zoologist. Almost all keywords. All point to a book called Kasai, the science fiction of Tyrannosaurus Rex. And because the book did not receive public recognition, so I can't find more details. To sum up, the whole Kasai Tyrannosaurus incident is a sham. It's more likely. Up to now, this incident has also been dubbed the Kasai Tyrannosaurus hoax. Of course, nothing is absolute. I think the only possibility in these worlds. It's in the original report that Johnson. It does describe a 14.6 meter long lizard, and provided an illegible graphic evidence. Although, the specific information of John Johnson in the corner of the eye, also hard to verify, but no one dares to deny. In a primeval land that is inaccessible to humans, deep in the rainforest, there could really be a large in lizards that have not yet been discovered by humans. But after all, the unknown is always greater than the known. That's the beauty of Yuma. Okay, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.